Good morning, everyone. Welcome back to another segment of Come Fly With Us, inside information about insurance. We're back again with Marcus Becerra. And Marcus, we've got a question that came up, and it confuses a lot of people because a lot of people confuse flood insurance with water endorsements on their home policy.
Yep.
But there is a difference.
Yes.
So let's talk about what flood insurance is and whether or not they may need it or not.
Flood insurance is one of those things. If your pipe busts in your house and floods the house, that's more on the home insurance.
Right.
What they mean by flood insurance, it could be a couple of different things. Could be a hurricane, rains 40 inches and the water would, come from an outside source, whether it be a creek, the driveway, river, any kind of tank bed or anything like that comes into the house.
Right.
We can run the addresses and see if you're in a flood zone. Most of the time, if your property or your home that you're buying is in a registered flood zone, the mortgage company is going to require you to have flood insurance.
Right.
So if you're not in a flood zone or not a high risk flood zone like an X, then you're not really required by the mortgage company to have it. It's completely up to you on whether or not you want to purchase that policy or not.
And it doesn't, just because you may not be in the worst flood zone, doesn't necessarily mean you don't need flood insurance, because a lot of the claims that happen on flood are homes that are in X, basically.
Yeah, no.
And so for a variety of reasons, right?
Yeah. I saw one instance, I was watching the news, it was several years ago, and a water main broke in Fort Worth, and the drains couldn't handle it. So what happened, there was a little cul-de-sac there, probably 3 or 4 houses, that water got into the house. And I looked over to my wife and I was like, if they don't have flood insurance, I don't think there's going to be any coverage for that. So it just doesn't have to be weather related. It could be something like that water might come in from an outside source and damage the home. Yeah.
And just because you don't live near a body of water, I mean, you know, that probably was not near a lake anywhere, and it was in the middle of the city, and there you go. So flood insurance is very important, and it's not really that expensive.
No, typically if you're in a flood zone X and you're not in a high risk zone, anywhere from $300 to $400 a year, depending on the deductible that you want to do. We can get you in something pretty inexpensive. Now if you're looking in the flood zone, and you're in a flood zone, and you have to have what they call an elevation certificate,
right?
And then your insurance premiums on a flood policy in a flood zone, it's a little bit more expensive depending on where it's at, so.
But just like anything else in life, I mean, there's a give and take on everything. So if you want to have that perfect house and it's right there and it's in that flood zone, is it worth it to you? You have to make that determination. We can't do it for you. Your realtor can't do it for you.
Yeah.
But if you absolutely love the house and that's where you want to be, then just know that your rates are going to be expensive on, your flood insurance.
Yeah, and it really varies too. A lot of mortgage companies, they really don't. Sometimes they're really hard on flood insurance. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they require a policy through the NFIP, through FEMA. Sometimes they're okay with having a private flood. So we write those type of policies through the NFIP. But we've also got some private carriers that'll offer the flood insurance too, that are most of the time a little less inexpensive. But it just depends on what the mortgage company wants.
Yeah, that's cool. So be sure and check with your mortgage company if you haven't already. If you think you might need flood insurance, and if you've been kind of rocking along, you live in a neighborhood, you've got even maybe like a drainage behind your house where they're collecting the water, that could flood.
Yeah, specifically like these new builds. There's a lot of subdivisions where they've never, the houses are brand new, nobody's ever lived there before. They haven't had a storm that's rained 6 or 8 inches in it, and seen how everything drains. So there's a lot of things that go into that. But if you move into a subdivision that's really high and you talk to the neighbor and it's like, man, I've lived here 20 years and it's never flooded. Might not need it, but you just never know.
Just never know. So just assess your own situation and reach out to us before it's too late. Because the time to try to get a flood policy is not when the storm is coming or when it's been raining for 2 days.
The hurricane's in the Gulf and you live right off the Gulf, it's probably not the best. Most flood insurance companies have what they call a wait period. Most time it's 30 days. If it's for a closing, then we can do it on the day of the closing.
Right.
But if you see a hurricane and you don't have flood insurance and it's going to hit in 2 days, the likelihood of you getting flood insurance is not very high.
That's true, because these companies will put a moratorium on us issuing any kind of policy, whether it's home, auto. I mean, they'll stop us from issuing. If there's a huge storm coming, hurricane or something like that, they'll stop us and then they'll let us know when we can resume policies, right?
Yeah, exactly.
So again, I always tell everybody, insurance is not important until it's important, and it is when you need it. So let's get you ahead of the game and make sure you're covered properly before you need it. That way you can rest easy. Because, let's just face it, most people these days, their home is their most important and most expensive asset.
Yep. And some folks are okay with having it. Some folks are just a little more worried about it. So we'll do either way.
Some people like to roll the dice, man.
Some people gamble,
What
so.
you don't want to happen is come up snake eyes. So watch out. Hey, share this video with your friends and family. We appreciate everyone watching our videos. Go to elliscountyvideos.com, subscribe to the YouTube channel, and hit the notification bell. Check out the insurance section for all of our insurance policy questions that we've been doing, and just keep up with us. If we can help you in any way, reach out to us, jim.ensinia@goosehead.com or 469-585-6012. Thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the next one.